Hello.
Top of the afternoon to you, young man, and
Yes,
all our happy listeners.
that's right. Well, happy Thanksgiving. I know we're a few days out, but did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Happy Thanksgiving to you also, Nick. We did. It was just Mary and I at home, and we had fun cooking
Yeah.
and double the fun eating, and we're still eating.
Yeah, I know, right? We last night we were like, oh, what are we gonna eat? We were so done with leftovers and cooking, so I think it was a one of those rare cereal nights.
Yes, it
We
gets
were
to
just-
that, doesn't it?
yeah,
You had enough turkey.
yeah, we're like, let's just have breakfast for dinner, and by breakfast I mean cereal. No,
It's all good. Which cereal?
um, oh, cinnamon toast crunch for me. I, yeah, I'm a sucker for that.
And what about her?
My wife had some of that too. My daughter had like Captain Crunch. Yeah,
It's all good. Cereal night. I love it.
yeah. We don't eat a lot. I mean, we buy a lot more than we eat.
Yeah,
We
I gotta
find.
get after it. We still have leftover cranberry sauce. I gotta get after that. I've been eating a ton of turkey and mashed potato, but I haven't been eating the cranberry sauce, and I gotta get to that. As I see it
Mm,
in the refrigerator waiting on me.
yeah, that sounds good. We didn't do it
Hmm.
ourselves. We did all the usuals, some potatoes, sweet potatoes. Yeah, I got in a little bit of a pie and cheesecake mode. So my wife did most of the pies, but I made a pumpkin cheesecake, and
Ooh,
uh,
ooh,
I made it
ooh.
a few days beforehand, so it didn't quite it didn't make it to Thanksgiving. We were eating it before a day
Right,
leading up to.
right. Yeah. Oh, we just went store bought
Yeah,
with the pies, but it was damn good.
yeah, yeah.
Pecan pie and cherry. Oof.
Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds good. I like cherry pie, and I definitely
Me
like
too.
a pecan pie. But pecan, I can only do so much. It's so rich. So
Yes, it surely is.
I know what I'm going to do after this in an hour.
Yeah, we're going out to eat.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a really great restaurant not far down the street, reasonable price, and they have a spectacular salad.
Oh,
All
okay.
I need is that salad. It's got candied walnuts in
Ooh,
it. Oof,
there you go.
damn fine.
And it's just down the street, so that makes it even
Yes,
better.
has blue cheese sprinkled in it, which I never used to like, but now I do.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about that. I like a little bit on a burger or a nice grilled steak, and yeah.
Amen, brother.
Well, good stuff. It's been a couple weeks. I I'm glad I labeled our show ahead of time because I was able to. I was like, okay, it was a couple weeks ago. We talked about this next episode, and I was like, oh, great, that's right. We talked about this, waging nonviolence,
Yes.
and yeah, interesting thoughts and topics. And I mean, it's so broad. As I was
Yes.
doing a little reading beforehand, and like different ventures from the economy and justice to democracy to cultural issues. I mean, all of it, right? So yeah, I was like getting myself warmed up for your thoughts and where you were.
Yeah, and there's a web page,
Journey.
Waging Nonviolence, is just a rich resource. I don't know the
Oh,
name of the guy that does it, but and I haven't in these 2 weeks. I've been reading two books,
okay,
plus the Atlantic magazine, so I have not been on that web page in these 2 weeks.
okay,
I've already got all the material for today that I had ready last time,
yeah.
but I haven't delved further into it. And I want to because he talks about he's got like interviews with like 10 different people
Oh,
who headed up resistance movements in various countries, like Brazil would be one, where
oh,
they
okay.
had that hideous guy, and I forget his name, Bolsonaro, something like that.
Okay.
And how they did nonviolent and how they did nonviolent resistance.
Yeah.
So we'll be feasting off of that for a while.
Okay. Is it here? I can put it in the chat. I mean, a plug as a resource. Is it wagingnonviolence.org? Because I think that's what I ended up
I think it is.
stumbling on and looking at a bit too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a objective news media sort of platform this person has put together.
Yes.
And it looks like they might even have a podcast from what I saw. Yeah.
Oh,
They have
great.
a list of podcasts. So I haven't looked at any of them, but might have a episode in my future to listen to.
For sure. So
Let me post that here.
hello to all the people who are getting on board with us. It was 2, and then it was 3, and now it's 2 again. But
Okay. Oh yeah.
we had 55 viewers from our last episode.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So we had 68, and then the one that came out the day before the election, we had about 25. I think everybody was otherwise preoccupied, and now we're
Yeah.
at for this one. So
Yeah.
hello to all the people that are viewing this.
Some growing following there. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it.
So go ahead.
Oh, I said we'll take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're dealing with the aftermath of the presidential election as a subset of what we've been doing in this podcast, which is dealing with the quote unquote meta crisis,
Right.
which is many different bad things, challenges, crises happening to us, the human race at once,
Yeah.
to the extent that we could feel overwhelmed
Right.
and despairing.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to take on,
Absolutely.
and some people have said, well, maybe it's actually the poly crisis. I
Yeah.
thought of you this week, Nick, when I heard a third
Oh,
description,
did you?
really a good one, the pickle.
Oh, the pickle.
That we're all in a pickle.
I like it.
I do too.
That
It has just enough playfulness without being
yeah.
dismissive.
Yeah, that's true. That reminds me of a little tradition because our family does the little pickle ornament game
We do
with the
too.
tree. Yeah, that made me think of that too. But
I was looking for the pickle ornament today, and I can't find it.
someone did it
That's
good.
outstanding that you have that too.
Yeah.
So, um, uh, in talking about ways to address it, we have talked about the big four,
Mm-hmm.
which is wake up, clean up, um, grow up. I almost forgot what it was. I haven't grown up very much apparently, and show up.
Show up.
And we haven't really gotten into show up in very much depth. But the poly crisis, the meta crisis, the pickle has taken on a new dimension, a new level,
Mm-hmm.
as we see the United States is, in my way of looking at things, people are going to, this might be controversial, but not so much with our listeners, is subject to a hostile takeover, especially when you look at the cabinet.
Yeah.
People like Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel and
Yeah.
Hegseth, I can't remember his first name. We'll all learn it soon enough. Kind of anti-American, not kind of, I think
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard is widely considered to be a spy for Putin.
Interesting.
She's in head of national security now. I'm not sure exactly which one is her title, but
Wow.
it's just like giving away all our secrets.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
we're really facing it now. So I wanted to, and 2 weeks ago, for those who didn't watch, we talked about sort of my personal thoughts on how to hang in there
Yeah.
with all this, and it was a lot of self-care ideas.
Hmm. Right.
People can uh, refer back to 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, and this week, this Waging Nonviolence website,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more um, resisting.
Right.
Did you get into reading what I had discovered? The
Um,
article that I mentioned discovering?
I don't know if I read specifically, but what I did read was on that same site. And there's a few thoughts or lines that maybe were written that pop out at me, and it really they articulated very well the like what all the pieces came together to create this situation of facing authoritarianism. And I I found that part really interesting because it talked a lot about, okay, well, America, this is not your first rodeo with authoritarianism. We've been there before. We've seen movements. Um, it's on. If anything, you can look at it as though we are facing this because, in a bigger scheme, we as a culture, we as a American identity, need to go back to those roots of uniting to not be so divided on politics or political parties, but then get back to this sort of like uprising of what's best for us as Americans, as humans. And sometimes you got to fall a little bit before you can pick yourself back up. And this is, if you want to paint it in a potentially positive, you know, step back, take the, you know, 1 million mile out from Earth radius look, then you can see it as though, oh, this little moment in time is what is the catalyst for what is hopefully, you know, years of Americans and humanity reconnecting again. So I'm hopeful for that. But it means we all have to, um, no matter which side you are on, recognize and come together and identify the fact that we are not these extreme political groups anymore, and that we all need to kind of reform that identity. That's kind of what the article I was looking at. And I wish I could remember what it was called, but it was on that website.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Sounds good. It's a very thoughtful and useful website.
yeah,
And I'm going to get into his ideas that I culled from this article that I did read. But I
okay,
also want to beforehand talk a little bit about showing up. And next
okay,
episode, we will definitely get directly into showing up for 2 episodes.
okay,
Um, but I want to give a little bit of a foretaste this time because I have a very specific interpretation in mind that I got from one of my great heroes, Gary Snyder. I've mentioned him last time. I said he's the
yeah,
guy is the poet who has a 40,000 year uh, time reference in mind.
mm,
And one of the things that he said um, was that we all like a demonstration, going to a demonstration, and going to a march, and we like rhetoric, and
mm,
we like bumper stickers and yard signs, and basically sort of the partying aspect of political change.
Yeah.
But what we need to do, and he says the 60s movements fell apart because what we weren't so willing to do was to go to meetings. Like city hall
Yeah.
meetings.
Civic engagement. Mm.
Yeah, civic engagement on the boring level.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're really doing the work
Hmm.
that needs to be done when you're attending water resource planning committee.
Right.
When you've got your fingers in the dirt as you're doing cleanup of a river.
Yeah.
When you're reading the minutes of the library board, when you're supporting the grocery store's mission to enhance nutrition for kids and you're part of the debate,
Yeah.
behind the scenes, and when you're also the one who's responding to a crisis at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're out of your house and you're somewhere, um, showing up, you
Yeah.
know, to respond to a medical emergency. Um, Somebody's suicidal,
Hmm.
um, things like that. That's really
Yeah.
showing up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I think we're all required to do this to the best of our ability, according to our gifts.
Mm.
And January 20th will happen, and then we will be in unknown territory. You
Yeah.
know, we'll be at the mercy of a sociopath who doesn't have the guardrails that he used to.
Right.
And so, showing up, sure, I will go to a demonstration. I will. I'll go to a march. But you got to understand that that's not the work,
Right.
you know? So,
Yeah.
that's my personal thing about showing up. Also, showing up is being present, literally for the people in your life, as
Mm.
opposed to just having your body present,
Right.
but you're actually listening to them,
Yeah.
active listening, empathetic listening,
Yeah.
and you're actually sharing your thoughts and your feelings about this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
You know, um, being present for your neighbors, being present for your um, family, being present
Hmm.
for your friends. The famous gospel command, love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
This week, we had a dog
Oh
in
yeah.
our neighborhood disappear.
Uh,
Went outside to potty and walked off.
oh boy.
Now, this is a dog that I never didn't know the name, but I encounter her
Yeah.
because walk. I go on walks and I walk on a path that takes me past the backyard of these people.
Hmm.
I've noticed them because they support the same composting initiative that I do, and they have their bin out front, and so I kind of pay attention. And there's this dog um, that she doesn't bark, but she runs to me and kind
Ah.
of stares at me, and she disappeared. So
Oh.
I thought I've got to do loving my neighbor as myself on this occasion means showing up in the sense of getting in my car and driving around
Yeah.
looking for the dog, which I did twice.
Mm.
She was found, thank
Oh,
goodness,
good.
9 miles away.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
She made it from a relatively high end neighborhood to the hood. Found out how the other side lives. But
Oh.
just kind of little things like that show up,
Yeah.
show up, show up repeatedly. And next episode, we're going to talk about how to show up which is language that I got from the Zen Peacemakers group.
Oh, okay.
And they're cool. They're cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
Zen Peacemakers Group. Is that
Zen,
their official designation or?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There was this guy, Bernie Glassman. He was in LA doing his Zen stuff, and he was getting more and more blissful, enlightened, and he realized he could spend the rest of his life enjoying the flavor of enlightenment and the bliss.
Yeah.
And he said, I could do this, but actually, I'm going to go back to the Bronx where I grew up and start a bakery that employs people, and we'll have we'll have a nursery for workers to take their children here in the building,
Yeah.
and we'll have charitable outreach. And he did that, still meditating all the time. And he wound up making the cookie dough for Ben and Jerry's
Oh,
ice cream.
okay.
Yeah. And he got bigger and bigger, and he started his Zen Peacemakers.
Huh.
So he's going to provide the 3 ways that we can show up. It's really beautiful. And that will be next time. But this time, with no further ado, getting straight into, here we go, cat's up. I agree wholeheartedly, John. It's easy to go to a rally or march. It's harder to actually be humanitarian and empathetic and involved in the not so
fun moments. Yeah.
Not so fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you, cat's up. We'll talk about it over dinner. Okay. So here's what I got out of this article. He has like 10 different points. And I thought maybe we might not have time to get them all in, so I thought I'd prioritize them.
Okay.
And the first one is grieve. Now, what I'm seeing, maybe you're seeing it too, in the rhetoric that I'm seeing. I've left Twitter, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I went over to Blue Sky.
Yeah, we talked about that. You were exploring that last time we talked. Yeah.
Yes, it's official now.
Okay.
I'm no longer tweeting or reading tweets. I haven't figured out how to deactivate my account, but I'm inactive.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing, what I saw on Twitter in the last couple of days that I was there, and what I'm seeing on Blue Sky is people saying, no more grieving, no more boo-hoo. It's time to get active. And I honor where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But as a hospice chaplain and bereavement specialist, I think that's short-circuiting things. It's a shortcut.
Right.
That we need to not do.
Yeah.
I understand that you want to be active, but while you're being active, grieving this and doing it in private rather than in tweets and Blue Sky comments and Facebook comments
yeah.
is really important. And what he said, I wish I knew the name of the guy that wrote the article, but what he said was name what you have lost.
Yeah.
And I read that and I thought, you know what? I know exactly what I have lost. And it's several things, but here's the main thing for me is just for me sharing. I have 2 really good friends in Canada, a really good friend in Ireland, about 15 really good friends in England. One of them did the cover of this book.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, Lucy in England. I have a super good friend in Italy,
Mm-hmm.
Emmanuel, and then I have 3 good friends in Australia.
Okay.
Um, that I've become friends with all these people on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's been, minimum of 5 years of friendship with these people
Wow.
and sharing thoughts, feelings, and the sense that as Trump wants to, he doesn't like NATO, as he wants to disassociate with the civilized world, with NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries that are all that I've mentioned, with the exception of Australia.
Right.
And um, I think I have a German friend too. Lene, I think she's in Germany. Daniel, I think he's in Germany too. Um, that we are now dissociating from them as formally as a nation, and we're going to go along with Russia and North Korea. It really, and whoever Viktor Orban, is that Hungary? I think so. I've got a good friend in Hungary too, but I have a sense of kind of political, not personal, estrangement from our collective best friends.
Yeah.
That causes me to grieve. There's many things that are bad,
Yeah.
but that one gets me.
Yeah. I can feel that. When you put it that way, when you frame it that way, it's kind of like when you have a good friend who is dating somebody that seems very manipulative and toxic, and next thing you know, they're alienating all of those things, and it's painful to watch, because you know that it's not necessarily that they're becoming someone that they are not, it's that they are highlighting or modifying the persona that makes them uniquely them, that you've loved and see the greatness of, and it's now being masked by something else that's a new version
Yeah,
of them. um and to the outside, especially outsiders or people who care about these countries, these people, it's hard to get through, because there's such blinders on, and in so many ways, things that just make it difficult to penetrate. Yeah. To the point where you become numb, and we think of like Stockholm syndrome.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
allowing yourself to feel that, you know.
Yeah.
I also have the sense, Trump wants to uh, deport 15 million. I think he doesn't have the capacity to pull that off.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole thing with the wall.
Yeah. I see the deporting of 15 million illegal immigrants as kind of like, yeah, we're going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it.
Right,
That's the 2024 version, or
right.
2025 version of the wall.
But what
Um,
if he's able to deport 2 million?
yeah. I
I have
mean,
I have a feeling of the United States has a cruel history
mm,
in many respects. The slavery and the way that we
yeah.
did a Holocaust against the Native Americans, but that we are. I had a sense that we were evolving,
Yeah.
becoming a kinder, gentler nation. you know, Electing a black guy, having 2 women candidates who were able to garner at least 75 million votes, apiece.
Right.
Um, and now kicking these people out. He pledges 15 million. I'm imagining there will be legal immigrants that will be caught up in the
Yeah.
thing.
that is one of those things that I've felt of all the things was much more of true lip service to a camp of supporters and people to feed on fear mongering of look what these illegal immigrants are doing and here's what I'm going to do about it and be the kind of the I want to save us all from this the violence that this brings. And the reality of it is, well, I think we all know that the perpetrators of violence are across the spectrum, not just immigrants, legal or illegal, and that our economy depends very much on immigrant workers, including illegal immigrants. And let's face it, the typical naturally born American or those with legal citizenship through legal immigration means, once they've attained a certain level, I find that a lot of Americans don't want to do the jobs that illegal immigrants have been doing. And,
Yeah.
our agriculture, our ability to export, you couple that with tariffs, and all of a sudden we can't sell our agricultural goods because they're being tariffed, and the people who farm and maintain agriculture are being deported. Like it's a recipe for disaster. So I think I hope and I believe that much of what was campaigned in regards to immigration was the truest lip service, and that's really it. Not
Let's hope so.
hopefully, but
Yeah. But
anyway,
still,
the humanitarian and economic impacts are just awful. So
yeah. And even if Trump fails and doesn't get 15 million out, I grieve the lost sense of evolution, the
yeah.
evolution of this country.
Well, and not to be too hyperbolic, because it often gets misconstrued as being, going to this extreme. But I think about, we look back to World War II, and we look at all the human beings that were put into conditions which were less than, I mean, they were just horrific in concentration camps. And you're talking 6 million European Jews that died and put into these conditions. And we're talking about deporting 15 million from whatever their current living or standard of living is right now. And I just don't know how you can to do that humanely and without it reflecting something as awful and toxic as concentration camps of the World War II. Like I just the visioning the vision of it is so terrifying. Like
Yeah. So for our viewers, you can name what you think. Nic and I are sharing our thoughts about what we're grieving.
yeah,
But you can name what it is that causes you grief about this. The abortion rights and the suffering and the deaths of young women.
yeah,
You know, the suffering, uh, the fascist culture is male and violent, and so there's sort of a celebration of violence to women. Um,
mm,
uh, these horrific misogyny and racism on the rise, anti-Semitism on the rise. Um, just ugly.
yeah.
So there's a time. Take time for yourself. This is kind of still in the safe self-care uh, category, but take time for yourself to grieve.
Yeah.
Name what it is that you lost, many things maybe, and allow yourself to cry through it.
I'm gonna because you said there's 10, so I won't dwell too much on it. But I think we both have strong feelings about grieving and what you may have been describing, which is, all right, boohoo, move, quit crying about it, get over it, grieve it, and move on. And I think you and I both know that that's, cut from other aspects of life in relationships, death, dying, bereaving. You don't ever tell anybody to just, you've grieved long enough, move on. Like, we all know that these stages and these movements are fluid, that just because you spent some time grieving and it appears you're moving on and you're doing, some other, you know, steps, doesn't mean you're not allowed to go in and out of grieving again. And in fact, I think to say to move on would be, you might lose sight of what you're fighting for if you don't go back and figure out and remind yourself what it is that enrages you, that gives you, your lights your passion to go do, to go act, to show up, um, be grounded in that. And if you just say, I'm done grieving it, then, well, sometimes you need to revisit the grief to be like, yeah, this is worth fighting for again. I need my spark.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. I'm in strong agreement, and we will not get through all 10 of these today, but we're picking and choosing. So the next one, there's so many good ones here. There's so many good ones. But now we get into actual resistance. And one that I really love, I'm gonna get through 6 more. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Yeah. And the one is reorient your political map. Now, this was implicit in what I was talking about when I talked about growing up, and I said there's the blue level of consciousness, which is sort of traditional, the police and the priest and the soldiers are the ultimate heroes. And then there's orange, which is business is everything, science is everything. And then there's green, which is much more interested in human rights, sensitivity, opening up to feminism, civil rights, gay rights, sort of thing, environmentalism. And then there's the next level, which is seeing that all of them, which is in yellow, its first color code, which is seeing all of them as ladders, going up, and there's a healthy and unhealthy. That's so much different than viewing a person as strictly red or blue.
Yeah.
But also reorient your political map. Is Liz Cheney on our side or not? She is, isn't she? Right?
I don't know.
We disagree with her strongly
Yeah.
on things, but she came through very courageously, right?
Yeah.
Twice. Once with the January 6th thing, investigation committee, and then with campaigning for Kamala. Reorienting your political map means no longer thinking of yourself as us against them and it's red against blue. It's elephant versus donkey.
Yeah.
If you got your American flag outside your window, then that probably means that you're a right winger and we're not friends, right? Huh?
Is that what that means?
Well, that's in my neighborhood. The people that have the American flag out are, and I would love to put out my American flag just to counter this narrative.
Interesting.
That means that they're on the conservative end of the spectrum.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, because I'll plant my Kamala Harris Waltz sign out there underneath my American flag. Like,
yes.
I display my pride flag, below the American flag. So, I like to myself present the as somebody who has a very prominent, 20-foot flagpole and flag,
Yeah.
um, it's also very clear. People I've lived in this house almost 6 years, have already seen where my social political views kind of lie.
Yeah.
And I have an American flag. So,
That's good for
not all
you.
patriots are Republicans or conservatives, even though I might, and I like what you say about uh what is the word you said?
Reorient your political
Reorienting
map.
your political map. And here's an example. We talk about, like, there's a bunch of people and they're using it as fear. Oh, look what the state, representatives, Democratic representatives, House, Senate, whatever, they're already pushing some agendas to protect the unhoused, to allow them to camp in public spaces, to do all this stuff. And it's like, I think we all, even, both sides, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or like, we're kind of seeing what this is doing. It sounds like we're doing a humane thing and an accepting thing and a very progressive thing, but it also doesn't really, it's probably not the most compassionate bits of legislation. And so that's where it's like, to reorient your political map. It's like, am I going to go to the extreme of being like, oh, look what these Democrats are doing. They're so caught in this, like, their, political correctness, that they don't even realize that this agenda they're pushing is actually bad for us and not in my backyard, all that. But I'm like, well, maybe it's not bad for us because it's actually not the compassionate thing to do, to say, hey, we're going to let you live in camps in the streets, where how about some legislation that focuses on the issue that leads or contributes to unhoused and homelessness. And maybe that's where we should be focusing on. So it's like, I agree with you that this sucks as far as legislation goes, but I don't, the reasons I don't agree that it's good legislation is not the same as yours, meaning, I think it's inhumane. You think it's just creating trash in your backyard you don't want to deal with. So, yeah, I think that there's different ways of going about this political, reframing your political views or sides. And I have to go back to, in order to all meet in the middle again, move on in the future, hopefully sooner than later, we all have to take a look and be like, okay, where have I been too rigid or too critical of the other side, or judging them unfairly? What parts of their situation have merit? Um, and there's times where it just won't make sense. And there's times where it's like, maybe I can see a little bit of this where I can kind of empathize with them. And if they were willing to do the same, a bit of soul searching, then I think there's room, there's opportunity for engagement and discourse that doesn't happen in the right arenas. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And we have a guy here in Milwaukee. He's a famous right-wing radio talk
Mm.
show guy. I met him involuntarily a few times. I wound up eating dinner at his house and got along with him just fine. His name is Charlie Sykes. You may have heard of him now because he's gotten into the national arena. Do you know him?
The name sounds familiar. I don't know of his. I don't know what he's most known for. Let's just say
Well,
I
he
only
was
know
a
the name.
strong right winger. He was this big,
Yeah.
huge Reaganite, and he has somehow before the 2016 election, he came out very, very strongly against Donald Trump, and he has stayed against Trump all this time,
Interesting.
to the point that now, I read his Substack, and to the point that now it's like, I swear you're a Biden fan. You know, reorient your political map. Different realities happen. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I have a person that I read who's going to figure in our um, podcast here pretty soon. Her name's Nora Bateson,
Oh, well, you've heard the name sounds familiar. I think you've mentioned Nora Bateson a few times.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And where was I going with that? Nora said something on a um, podcast the other night that I was like, oh my gosh. She said, don't think of a human being as a label,
Hmm.
but as an organic being in process.
That's right. So she's the one you talked about, warm data. That's what it
That's
was.
her.
That's right. I had to jog my memory with that. And that makes sense that she would say that because we're just an integration of an amalgam of influences, experiences, and that interrelationship of all of it.
Right. So I'm going to move along because I just see we're at 46 minutes into this. So don't be afraid to grieve. Label what it is that you're grieving. Reorient your political map. What did I write here that she said about that? She didn't say anything else about it other than that. All right, but the next one is find your path. And according to this article, 4 different paths are mentioned. Now we're getting really into the resistance part. Protect people, disrupt and disobey, defend civic institutions, and build alternatives. I'll say those again and then we'll go through them. Find your path. And the 4 paths that are mentioned as possibilities are protect people, disrupt and disobey, defend civic institutions, and build alternatives. And I've got a little additional comment on each one, and then I assume we'll cut through it, and people are invited who are watching to comment as well. Protect people. Be part of a immigrant welcoming committee or a support committee.
Mm-hmm.
Support the homeless. Provide supportive funds for abortion. It could be just giving to Planned Parenthood, but it could also be giving to individuals.
Yeah.
Looking out for people who are clearly suffering over this. What I figure is with the cuts to Medicaid that are hoped for, that there's going to be a lot of suffering in our nursing homes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a way to protect people.
Yeah.
Here's an insight that I got from my years in hospice. Nursing home staff, there's millions of people who are hardworking at it and that are they're doing the best that they can, and they're dealing with a short end of the stick. I mean, it's a hard career to be
Mm-hmm.
good at, and there are also people who are not good. You know, they don't have high salaries and high entrance exams to become an aide in a hospice, in a nursing home.
Right.
And there's theft going on, and there's
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse going on. And if you start visiting a nursing home on a regular basis, they know that there are now eyes on the resident.
Yeah.
And there's a higher likelihood of the abuse being found out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so these are different ways to respond to the meta crisis. One is protect people.
Right.
So, Nick, do you have any other ways that come to you in your profession or your home life that you would consider that you could protect people?
Until this, I hadn't thought about this as part of the resistance and showing up actually. Um, I naturally sort of lean towards an advocate personality,
Ah,
um,
yeah.
and really just calling out things, being the first one to kind of in a crowd step forward and call out something that appears wrong or unjust. And um, but at the same time, I don't have a specific group that I've thought about as far as to defend and to be there and to protect.
Well, maybe what you're doing is enough, being the guy that speaks up.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm thinking about it, and it's like, well, I'd still put that in the as far as the realm of impact. It's there with you know being at a rally. You know what I mean? Like, is is
Yeah.
it is it showing up, or is it just being present as part of a general collective, a mindset of other like-minded people? And that's where I'm trying to think about that. Um, and I also, as you're describing this, it made me, and we won't go too far in this rabbit hole, but it made me keenly aware of the differences of the states which you and I live. Uh, because I'm in Washington, you're in Wisconsin, and Washington has never been and is not likely to be a much of a battleground state ever. And because of that, I was thinking like, okay, how can I help, someone say obtain access to care if they're a individual needing reproductive health services or abortion services. And I don't live in a place where I could be like, you know what, I'm going to be part of a group of who's willing to drive multi states to get someone the care they need. I don't have that it's not present in the climate of my particular state, even though
Yeah.
I would love to do that and help. It's
It's
not,
not present here
not
either.
present. Yeah. So
Our governor's
it's like,
pro-life, thank goodness.
yeah. So, I, I think, you talked about the homeless, but then there's a part of it. And I think I brought this up last time, how my kids and we talked about like, well, we should put together these
Yeah,
support
yeah,
bags
yeah,
that
yeah,
give out
yeah.
and I think that's still part of it, but that's charity. And it may make a person's day or their week or support them in ways that are important. But is it fighting against this authoritarian, destructive sort of movement that started here? I have to think about that.
Yeah, very good.
You have more recommendations, or our viewers do. I'll definitely check out those. But yeah, I'm at a
Yeah,
loss.
and
And I guess that
I
speaks to my privilege.
what do you say?
I guess that speaks to my privilege too, a little bit.
Yeah,
To that I am a part of a community that tends to do well supporting one another in whatever ways. But I can't identify much in the way of groups that need in
well,
my.
here's another one. Here's another one, and you're protecting of them. It can't be too personal. You'll know what I mean when I talk. Um, Elon Musk has already threatened imprisonment for Alexander Vindman. Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a guy that testified in the Trump impeachment trial about the call to Zelensky, get us dirt on Biden and we'll get you some money. Yeah. He is a fine, outstanding person, and Musk has threatened him for treason. So, um, I have directly tweeted at Musk before I left Twitter,
Mm,
saying I support Vindman.
yeah.
I retweeted several people saying that they supported. Rachel Vindman, his wife, came out strong. Alexander Vindman himself came out strong. Um, and I retweeted what they said, and I called our conservative congressional representative here in Wisconsin
Okay.
and said, I'm here to tell you that I support Alexander Vindman against this horrific miscarriage of justice, which Elon Musk is threatening. But I think this will come up on more than one occasion during these 4 years.
Yeah, and so yeah, I quickly looked that to familiarize myself, and it's you've rung some bells, and now it's making sense. I think when I initially heard about this, what has struck me the most is that I can't talk too much about my in our work here, um, but as a person intimately familiar with government employee work, um, we all go through what is considered annual trainers, annual refresher training about the Office of Government Accountability and whistleblower rights and protections. And the first thing that comes to my mind in regards to this Alexander Vindman as a a military outstanding military service record, as well as a representative for in a government role and job, that him calling out, they're calling it treason, but in our business structure of government employment, it's called whistleblower rights and protections. I like you're going to spin this to say that anytime a whistleblower comes out and says something against their employer, against the government that they work for, that it's treason. No, that goes against all the government accountability, and actually they're undermining their own government with this ploy. Honestly,
Yeah, that's a good point.
it's more destructive to the government what they're doing and saying, and under the lead, the misguided lead of Musk and Trump here, that you're defaming a person, and you're also saying, yeah, sorry, all you government employees, if you blow the whistle, even though we tell you you should, it's actually treason. No, that's not going to sit well. So,
Right. Amen.
yeah.
Okay, Nick, we're at the witching hour almost. I'm going
We're
to do
getting there.
one.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one more,
Okay. One more.
and then we'll do more next time. Defend civic institutions, and I don't remember him saying anything about this, but my mind went wild with it once I heard it. Civic institutions which are under assault. We've got the FBI. Not that I was any great lover of the FBI anyway. I mean, they had files on Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lennon and who knows who else.
Mm-hmm.
But still, they're essential for our safety. But so many institutions are under assault now. It can go down to the journalism institution having a subscription to the Washington Post or the Boston Globe or the what do you subscribe to anything online? Seattle?
No, I don't actually subscribe to anything online. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it is. Somebody turned me on to, and I forgot the name of it, but I was very fascinated by it because it was more of a media collective that allowed for you to get multiple sources of input, so that yes, you can kind of see what what people who lean right, lean conservative, are spitting out there in terms of media, and then you can also get your the left and more liberal leaning side of things. And they had mentioned that they found it informative and useful for them, kind of keeping a balanced perspective. And I asked them about it so I could subscribe, but it was the first time I thought about like, oh, I might actually subscribe to something news related. I'll have to ask them about it again.
Yeah,
Actually, a coworker of mine told me
that
about
sounds great.
it. Gosh, makes me want to text them right now and find out what it is. But I don't actually subscribe to anything. I get frustrated when I use my device and look at anything news because of the amount of not necessarily marketing of the paper or outlet itself, but the amount of other advertising that I receive. And it's like, it's usually the obnoxious kind where it's like, how do I get this to go away?
Yeah.
And it really puts me off of a lot of media that I can consume digitally. There are a few that deliver physical copies of papers.
Yeah.
But it's really slim pickings now out here.
Yeah.
I think Wall Street Journal is one of the few.
And there's newspapers and magazines, but there's also PBS.
Yeah.
There's NPR. There is the public library.
Yeah.
These are all sort of institutions that are devoted to an educated. There's the museum.
Yeah.
We had a couple socialist mayors here in Milwaukee.
Uh-huh.
In the turn of the 20th century and up until about 1950. I can't remember that guy's name. Frank somebody. It was two guys. One guy was very charismatic and he was beloved and he sang on the 4th of July at the neighborhood park, and then he was killed in World War II combat.
Oh.
And so his brother took over and was the mayor for like 30 years. And what they enacted was museums, a vast network of public parks here in Milwaukee. That dog that was lost that I mentioned was found in a public park, probably put together by these two brothers. Libraries, a network of libraries, like 10 or 12 libraries.
Wow.
So all the different neighborhoods had libraries. Beautiful stuff, you know? And supporting this sort of stuff is so essential to our, ongoing survival of the people. Some of them are somewhat outdated, but still, I just love, I love that vision. The institutions that support the people, public pools, pools, all that kind of thing. Beautiful.
Yeah, public. I mean, we have a big park system here in our city. In fact, I visit or spend time walking in at least one of our parks every couple of weeks, and I think it's really, it's not like there's anybody like, oh, what's our counts of visits to the parks right now, but it does make an impact to our leaders, local government leaders especially, to see that there's activity, to see that there's engagement in these spaces, in these worthwhile and necessary spaces, and to see people who, by way of enjoying those spaces and or being vocal and active about, continuing to advocate for funding and, improvement of public spaces as well. So.
And another institution to support, very similar to what you were talking just then, triggered it, is the National Park Service.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but we're an hour and 5 minutes in.
All right. And you got a date to go to.
I've got a date to go through. Plus, I've got this. Let me
I
see if
got
I
a
can get the.
cat that's vying for your attention.
How am I going to get you on here?
There
There he is.
Nice.
That's Stargell.
Stargell.
Mm-hmm. He's a wonderful cat.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We will see
Good
you
to
in a
be
couple.
with you, and we will continue this in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Bernie
Sounds
Glassman and the Zen Peacemakers are going to have to wait. We got still more to do on this.
Yeah. All right. Well, Zen peacemakers, they wouldn't be Zen if they weren't okay with waiting.
That's right.
All right. You guys take care.
Peace.
Peace.